4 months had passed since Seema and Hemant's marriage. Before the wedding, Seema was always full of joy, but now, little by little, the happiness on her face seemed to have faded like a forgotten story. In front of the rest of the family, she would put on a forced smile and move to the house all day. But inside, her heart was so heavy that she could no longer feel any joy. It felt to her as though getting married was the biggest mistake of her life, as if her entire existence had been overshadowed by this marriage. In these 4 months, Hemant had neither tried to understand his wife nor made much effort to connect with her. Even when they were alone at night, he was only focused on his own desires, and by morning, it was as if his wife meant little to him. Seema was deeply hurt by her husband's distant behavior because in her mind, a husband and wife were supposed to be partners in joy and sorrow. But here, her husband only brought her pain, and he seemed indifferent to her struggles. Today, too, Seema had finished all the household chores, but as she headed to her room at night, she felt a deep sense of dread. In her in-law's house, she lived with her father-in-law, mother-in-law, and her brother-in-law and his wife. Everyone in the house treated her kindly, and they all lived together harmoniously, sharing moments of laughter and happiness. But Seema was deeply anxious about her husband, Hemant. When she reached the room, he wasn't there yet. He had gone to the terrace to talk to a friend on the phone. Exhausted, Seema lay down on the bed to rest. After a while, Hemant entered the room. Seema quietly turned to her side, pretending to sleep, but it made no difference to Hemant whether she was asleep or awake. He only cared about what he wanted. He insisted on being close to her, and the discomfort from the previous night's encounter started to overwhelm her again. Seema let out a soft plea, but Hemant paid no attention. In a trembling voice, she said, "Please, I'm not feeling well today." Ignoring her words, Hemant replied, "You always have some excuse. Don't spoil my mood." And then he pressed on with his wishes while Seema sunk deeper into a sea of emotional pain. She cried quietly that night until she fell asleep, unaware of when it happened. The next morning, when she woke up, Seema stood in front of the mirror. Seeing the marks on her skin, she broke down in tears. Her husband shouted, "What's with this crying first thing in the morning? You're my wife, you'll have to deal with this. Don't I have any rights?" Tears streamed down Seema's face as Hemant stormed out of the room. This was the story of every night. And the next night too, he ignored her distress and continued his hurtful behavior. Seema couldn't understand. Was this what marriage was supposed to be? She had dreamed that her husband would love and cherish her, hold her close to her heart, try to understand her, stand by her in every joy and sorrow, and that she would live as the queen of his heart. But here her husband seemed only interested in his own needs. 4 months into their marriage, the same pattern repeated every night. Each morning, she would try to hide her pain with makeup. Everyone in the house thought she was just a newlywed bride, which is why she wore so much makeup. Her sister-in-law would tease her, and everyone would chuckle softly, but no one knew what happened behind the closed doors of her room. Seema would smile shyly along with them, but inside her heart was breaking from the pain. Out of shame, she couldn't bring herself to tell anyone about her struggles. Before one hurt could heal, another would take its place. Every morning, her spirit felt weighed down, and by now she had almost grown numb to the pain. She would wake up like a machine, bathe, apply makeup to cover the signs of her distress, and step out of the room with a forced smile, joining the rest of the family in their daily routine.
One morning, Seema woke up feeling even more overwhelmed than usual. She hurriedly bathed, applied extra makeup, and went to the kitchen to start her chores. Her sister-in-law Rashmi teased her, saying, "What's the matter, dear sister-in-law? Looks like you're sleeping too deeply these days. Doesn't your husband let you rest at night?" Seema's hands, busy with work, froze for a moment as the painful memories of the night flashed before her eyes. But in the next moment, she hid her teary eyes and forced a faint smile. Just then, Rashmi's gaze fell on Seema's bare back. Seeing the marks on her fair skin, Rashmi was stunned. She quickly placed a hand on Seema's shoulder, turned her face toward her and asked, "Seema, are you okay?" Seema, startled, adjusted her sari to cover the marks, wondering why her sister-in-law was asking such a question. Seeing the tears in Seema's eyes, Rashmi seemed to understand her pain. Looking into her eyes, she asked, "Seema, is everything okay between you and Hemant?" The moment she received a hint of sympathy, all the pain Seema had been holding in for months erupted and she broke down sobbing in Rashmi's arms. Through choked words, she shared how her husband's hurtful behavior left her feeling broken every night. Rashmi was deeply shocked to hear this because in front of the rest of the family, Hemant always behaved like a gentleman. To the outside world, he was an ideal son, a good brother-in-law and a respectable man. But behind closed doors, he turned violent with his wife. Wiping Seema's tears, Rashmi said, "Why did you stay silent for so long? You should have spoken up against this wrong. You could have told me or mom or someone at your parents' house." Seema, avoiding her gaze, said, "I was ashamed, Didi. I was afraid of what people would think if they found out." Rashmi, understanding her pain, said, "So many women suffer through such pain their whole lives because of shame and fear. But women aren't machines for men to use. They have feelings too, and they feel pain too. If a husband thinks he has rights over his wife, isn't it also his duty to care for her?" Seema bowed her head and Rashmi took her hand and led her to their mother-in-law's room. Sarita ji, their mother-in-law, was reading the newspaper at that time. Rashmi took the newspaper from her hands and placed it on the table. Sarita ji said, "Hey, why do you take my newspaper? Won't you let me read the news?" Rashmi sat beside her and said, "Mom, you can read the world's news later. First see what's happening in your own house." With that, she showed her the marks on Seema's back and told her everything. Sarita ji held her head in her hands and started crying, saying, "I had no idea my son was like this. What he's doing is terribly wrong. Let your father-in-law come home, I'll tell him everything and we'll talk to him and together." That day, Seema felt a sense of relief knowing her entire family was with her. That evening when Hemant returned from the office, his father Rameshji called him to his room. When Hemant arrived, Rameshji gently said, "Son, the relationship between a husband and wife is beautiful, but those who see their wife only as a means to fulfill their needs do a great wrong to their life partner." Hearing his father's words, Hemant froze, his face pale as if he'd been caught red-handed. Nervously, he said, "Yes, Dad, I understand, but why are you telling me this?" In a serious tone, Rameshji said, "Son, your wife has told us everything. How cruelly you treat her. She's a living, breathing person, not a machine. She has feelings too, and she feels pain too. If a husband thinks he has rights over his wife, isn't it also his duty to care for her?" Hemant bowed his head, feeling uneasy. In a trembling voice, he said, "Dad, I don't know what comes over me in those moments. I don't want to hurt her, but when she cries in the morning, I get irritated with her and myself. Every day I promise myself I won't hurt her again, but I don't know why this keeps happening." Seeing his son's state, Rameshji realized he needed help. He said, "Don't worry, son. I'll take you to a doctor and everything will be okay. If you realize your mistake, you can fix it. You just need a little help." When Rameshji took Hemant to a psychologist, counseling revealed that during college, Hemant's friends had shown him inappropriate videos which had deeply affected his mind. After marriage, he tried to apply those distorted ideas to his relationship with his wife. Through counseling, Hemant's behavior gradually improved and he began building a friendly relationship with Seema. He started caring for her, standing by her in joy and sorrow, and trying to understand her feelings. When he approached her with love, their relationship blossomed with affection. Seema too felt the sweetness of love because her husband now loved her sincerely and listened to her joys and sorrows.
Truly, she had now become his true life partner. Friends, I hope you liked our story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get updates first.